welcome. Welcome to the Art and Science of Marketing Communications with Lauren Perna Communications. I am your host today, Lauren Elizabeth Perna. We are going to kick off our year with just me as your host, talking about content creation. But as you saw at the end of last year and throughout last year, we were going to have lots of hosts, lots of great topics this year. Super excited. Um, with our brand new name and logo and lineup filled with incredible value driven topics that are driven by you guys, the things that you guys want to hear about. It's going to be a great year. I'm really excited. And I'm excited to kick off with this topic that I would say is probably one of our biggest questions, the thing that people ask us the most about when we are talking to both personal brands or company brands. People always want to understand how content creation works on LinkedIn. So today, I thought I would talk about maximizing your impact on LinkedIn from a personal brand perspective. So it's that personal profile, even if you don't have a personal brand or you think you do, you think you don't, you actually do. But either way, we're talking about that personal content from your profile. Next week, we'll talk about it from a company perspective. And that'll be interesting whether you have your own company or you work in a marketing department at a larger company, or you're just curious of how to be an employee that shares content on behalf of your company. So January is going to start off with our biggest topic, and then you'll see into the year we are going to go on to talk about other types of content creation, web copy. We're going to talk about different types of partnerships that you want to look for in a marketing team. Really excited to just kind of dive even deeper into the field of marketing. So let's get going. Today, we are talking about maximizing your impact on LinkedIn. All right, so here we go. So you know me, if you do know me, you know that I always like to set the stage and tell people why. Why are we doing the thing that I'm talking about? And I think that helps you understand kind of the motive behind it and gives you a better sense of how to move forward when you understand why. It gives you a baseline to go after. So, why do you want to create content creation for your personal brand? Great question. So, you know, first and foremost, it's a great way to just make an impact. Whether you think you have an impact to make or you don't think you do, trust me, you do. And people want to hear your voice. That's what makes a social media network so interesting is when people share their own unique voices. Um, Sharing your own content creation at a baseline is a great way to pursue your professional goals. Whether those goals are as an entrepreneur like me, or you are career driven and looking for that next big jump, personal content is the direction for that goal. Why else? Because it builds stronger connections. When people see you following up, showing up, and standing out every single day, they're going to follow you. They are going to know who you are, know what you're all about, and be able to recognize your content. Even without seeing your face, they're going to know who you are on the platform. And then if you're meeting any of these people in person, and even more of a connection. I can't even tell you how many people I meet in person and are like, I've been following you on LinkedIn. I love your stuff on LinkedIn. So I think this just goes to say that creating your own content is a great way to build connection with people digitally and in person. Um, it's especially great for awareness, whether, again, like I said, you are working for a company or you work for yourself. Content creation is just that great way of creating awareness of who you are, what you do, and why you do it. for an entrepreneur or somebody that is trying to get speaking engagements or find a new job, content creation is a great way to establish your expertise, to show your credibility and build trust. It's really putting yourself in a position of authority because you are sharing the same things over and over again. And because you are showing you have a deep knowledge of these things. You're not just posting and ghosting. You're not just, sharing one kind of platitude here and there. You are sharing deep thoughts on your topics of interest that fuel your professional goals. So those are the reasons why. I hope that kind of helps set the stage. So now that you know why, that is the biggest question. What are you doing? So what should your content strategy look like? Now, your content strategy should look different than a company strategy. Yes, a lot of the ground rules are the same and whatnot. But from a personal standpoint, from trying to stand out as a thought leader in your field or just trying to stand out, your personal posts should be vulnerable, unique, strategic, authentic, and experience driven. If they don't fit into any of those buckets, you need to ask yourself, why am I posting it? Which we'll get to in a second. So I always like to think of these, personal posts fitting into several buckets. Is it my passion? Is it my experience? Or my expertise? And now your expertise and your experience are different. Your expertise, I'm an expert in marketing communications, copywriting, content writing. My experience, I have worked at a nonprofit. I've worked in a corporate environment. My experience is all the collection of events that have happened that bring me to today. So two different things, and your experience could be personal or professional. We're really leaning towards those like professional or personal development type of experiences. We're not talking about like your experience, like the time you went to Disney World and had a great time. That is an experience, but not the type we're talking about. So hopefully that explains it a little bit, to give you that definition. And the one thing I do want to talk about with passion is, again, using the good old Disney World example, you could be passionate about Disney World, but does that lead back to your professional goals? If you want to be a trip planner for Disney, great. But if the passion really doesn't filter any of your professional goals, that's fine. It can just be a passion. And maybe once in a while, there's a way you can tie it in. You'll see every once in a while, I'll try and tie in skiing or being at the lake, which are my passions. But my content isn't going to be solely about skiing or being at the lake, unless I was a ski instructor, unless I owned a boat on the lake. So hopefully that kind of clarifies what we mean by passion. And only whether your passion drives your professional goals or solely personal goals. But know that you can have lots of different passions that serve different purposes. So always thinking in these buckets. Are my personal posts hitting these notes? Is it vulnerable, unique, authentic, strategic, and experience driven? Now, what I thought I would do is show you my buckets so you can kind of get a sense of how to create your own. So at the middle of my content bucket here, my little stack of Legos, let's call it, is my story. My story of going from, corporate girly to entrepreneur. My story of coming to terms with my mental health issues. My story of going sober, which fed my professional and personal goals. So at the heart is my story. And then, kind of an offshoot of all my story, is mental health awareness. As you guys know, that's a huge piece of what I do. Entrepreneurship is another big bucket. And if you've read any of my posts, you know that I talk a lot about the intersection of entrepreneurship and mental health awareness. See, and that's where my story is kind of that interface. Um, However, I also am an entrepreneur. So I also want to talk about my business. So you'll see I'll show company highlights. In this bucket, a lot of what we do is just I'll cross share. I'll share something my company has shared. Um, but then I also want to stand out as an expert in content and copywriting, LinkedIn, and personal branding, as we're talking about right now. So you will see that the other piece of my little Lego stack here is LinkedIn and personal branding and content and copywriting. Um, so I'm not sharing these ones as much. You know, my personal strategy, my personal focus really is that interface of entrepreneurship and mental health awareness. That is my personal story, but I also want to show how my personal story connects to my business. And I am sharing my personal story of entrepreneurship and mental health, the crux of my story, over the fact that I started my own business writing and sharing other people's personal stories through content and copywriting. So it's kind of this whole symbiotic environment where I am sharing my story that explains, why I'm passionate about my mental health awareness campaigns, why entrepreneurship is a great fit for my mental health, and how I've built a business as an entrepreneur telling other people's stories through LinkedIn and personal branding and through my skill of content and copywriting. Um, I know it kind of probably sounds easy with me saying it here, but I think the more that you think about your passions, your expertise, your experience, and kind of bucket those out, the easier it will come. And I always like to think when I'm creating a post, is this solving something, inspiring something, or educating? I should say inspiring somebody or educating somebody. And if it's doing none of those things, then why are you posting it? And this is where I want you to lean into these questions when you are coming up with a post that fits into one of those buckets. Just because something fits into one of those buckets does not mean that you need to post it. For example, the other day I did a entrepreneurship. I went to a meeting for entrepreneurs, for women entrepreneurs. Do I need to post that? I need to ask myself questions. Of course, it fits into those buckets. I'm an entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur. I love talking about that. But do I need to share the fact that I went to a meeting? So these are the questions that I would ask myself before creating a post. Why am I posting it? Am I posting it because it's going to solve, inspire, or educate? Maybe I'm just trying to show the fact that I went off to a meeting. That's not really a reason to post. Um, so I think, will it impact people? If I went to this meeting and learned something groundbreaking, maybe it would impact people. You see people posting about events that they went to with the takeaways. That's great. But if you're just posting to say, like, oh, I went to a meeting, that's not going to impact people. Will it raise the visibility of my company or me? Maybe if you're posting a photo of you at the event and there's a lot of people in the event, in the photo, maybe that would raise your visibility. So then kind of think back to, like, why am I posting this? To raise my visibility. And maybe then I want to inspire people. So I need to think of a post that will raise my visibility, but also inspire people. So maybe it's inspiring people to get their own community, instead of just saying, here's me with my women's entrepreneur group. Am I bringing attention to an important topic in my industry? Am I commenting on a relevant issue in the news or in my industry? Is my point of view interesting or unique? Will I be showing a different side of myself? Am I offering valuable expertise? And here's the kicker: how would I react if I saw someone else post this? Um, this is a lot of what drives me is I try and think, if someone else posted this, would I think this is interesting? And it's easy to kind of think everything you're posting is great and interesting, but really stepping outside of yourself and thinking, is this post going to do any of these things? Is it going to solve, inspire, or educate? And does it feel good to any of these questions? Is the answer to any of these questions no? Is it really not doing anything other than the purpose of just sharing? Then maybe I don't need to post it. Are you going to see posts like that on LinkedIn? Of course. But this is you. You're trying to focus on creating content that is strategic, that is meaningful, that's going to move the needle. You can't worry about what other people do or what does well. If somebody with 100,000 followers posts an image of just them at an event with no context and no meaning, of course it's going to do well because they have 100,000 followers. But when you're still under 1,000 followers or even under a couple of thousand followers, you want to make sure that all of your content hits these notes. And then when you have more followers and you're just trying to keep the momentum, sure, then post an event without any context. But for the time being, I really want you to think about content that serves a purpose and kind of answers some of these questions in a yes. You don't want them to say no. So, how do you create that standout content? So now we've given you the buckets, so the themes, we've given you kind of the strategy, the why, the purpose, and now you want to know the how. And that's probably the second biggest thing that people ask. Most people ask, like, what should I talk about? And then other people say, I know what to talk about. I just don't know how. So this is your answer to those people that don't know the how. And I took some of these ideas from the LinkedIn Guide to Creating, which we can pop in the comments and make sure you guys are following them. It's just a regular newsletter that shares kind of poignant to-dos on how to create standout content or how to be a standout creator on LinkedIn. So, first and foremost, focus on sharing specific moments from your experience. Again, you don't want to just say, oh, I joined a group and it was great. You want to say, when I walked into my first meeting with this entrepreneurship group, I looked around the room and saw, women just like me. Really, those like specific moments. And when you're sharing those specific moments, use that storytelling tactic, just kind of like I did right now. You want to include specifics. It's the age-old show, don't tell. So don't say you showed up to a meeting. Say, I opened the door, walked in, petrified, not knowing what I was going to think, and was met with smiling faces of other women entrepreneurs just as eager to grow their business as I was. I sat down next to a lady with dark blonde hair and she told me all about her aesthetics business. I'm just spitballing here, but those are storytelling tactics versus I walked into a meeting for women entrepreneurs and met a few great people. No, really tell the whole story. And then this is the other thing is you really want to make sure that content has actionable takeaways and avoid gatekeeping. That's huge. I think a lot of times on Instagram or LinkedIn, you'll see the like comment for this and, we'll send you XYZ, lead magnet. Let's try and avoid that on LinkedIn. I mean, if you've done it or you have it in the plans, don't worry about it. no one's going to kick you off the platform. But LinkedIn really tries to avoid those kind of gatekeeping tactics. We call them engagement bait, where it's trying to get you to engage through comments, and really just avoid anything kind of promotional, overly promotional, rather unoriginal, off topic. That's just not going to do well. Remember, at its core, LinkedIn wants to be a thought leadership platform, and it very much is. And that's why any of these kind of like over promotional engagement bait tactics really fall into a different category. But when you're providing actionable takeaways, specific moments, that is much more thought leadership driven. And I liked this quote from the newsletter I was telling you guys about. So they said, be vulnerable yet strategic. Share stories that align with your professional goals while still revealing your authentic self. It's all about balance, choosing moments that highlight both strengths and challenges, and keep your storytelling concise and impactful. I just thought that kind of like perfectly summed up everything I want to say. So, really keeping this quote in mind, anything you're sharing should be aligned with your professional goals while still revealing your authentic self. It is a fine balance. I absolutely agree. And then I figured I would end today's little tutorial on some tips to create standout content. So right now, LinkedIn is pumping up the videos, but I still wanted to talk about written posts because you're always going to see me posting written posts. I am incorporating more video. We can talk about that in a second, but don't be swayed by all the people posting video. If you've never posted before, you can start with a written post, or if you feel more confident in written posts, start that way. Don't feel like you just have to dive right into video, or vice versa. If video is easier for you than writing, go for it. I like to tell people to kind of mix it up between a little bit of both. When you are doing a written post, remember, it should be very easy to read. Use short sentences, write like you talk. Now, these are all things I would tell you for blog writing. So just remember that short sentences, write like you talk. Always incorporate like spacing and bullets to make the post very scannable. As you guys know, breaks my heart, but we are in an age where people just don't want to read. So incorporating those kind of like spacing, like hitting that enter button a couple of times, adding some emoji bullets, or even just, a dash, that's huge. And always have a hook. You're not going to stop any scrolls with a boring opener. You really need to have a hook. And that is the same thing for videos. A video should have a hook too. You want to keep it concise in your videos. And then I quickly looked this up because I wanted to make sure I was telling you guys the right length of time. So for short, quick videos, 30 to 60 seconds, like under a minute. Those work great for ads. If you're ever boosting your posts, those work great just, for quick hits about events you're attending or, something that's coming out. 3 to 5 minutes. I realized I left the minutes off. 3 to 5 minutes for longer, more explanatory videos. You'll see that sometimes we'll post a little snippet from a conversation on our LinkedIn Live series, the Art and Science of Marketing Communications, I should say. We try to make those, closer to 3 minutes or under a minute, based on, what we're sharing. Whether if it's just a quick hit, you don't want to make it awkwardly long, but if it's more of a deep dive, you don't want to cut it off before you're explaining. So always, the best way to think of that is to think of your audience and the objective. Am I just trying to drive people to, let's just say, my YouTube channel? Then yeah, quick hit is fine. Am I trying to engage people and share my expertise with potential clients, then yeah, let's do that 3 to 5 minute longer video. So always thinking about the audience and your objective. And this one you guys know because obviously you all attended our series in September on repurposing. So make sure that you are repurposing videos from your podcasts, your conversations if it's okay, presentations, your LinkedIn Live series, whatever have you, repurposing. And if you followed along, you know we use a platform called Opus Clip to clip our LinkedIn Live series into those either 30 to 60-second clips or 3 to 5 minute clips. There's plenty of platforms out there. I highly recommend you repurpose for video because it's a great way to get started and it's already recorded. But don't overthink it too. And also don't overthink it with the written posts. And the last thing that I didn't add in because I kind of ran out of time and I wanted to make sure I covered everything kind of more important with creating content. I know you guys are going to want to ask, what types of that kind of imagery should I pair my written posts with if I don't do a video? For some people, just having written posts is enough. I notice that those are people that have a lot of followers or have already set that cadence. But if you are somebody that feels like you need to accompany it with a graphic, a photo always does great. The carousels always do great as well. Those are natural engagement pullers because you have to slide to see them. So engagement through carousels. Everybody loves a good photo, or you could do a quote card. You could even add like a little animation to a quote card to draw people in. I wouldn't focus too much on making those things perfect. I think even just a photo of yourself will do well, but pairing it with some sort of graphic in the beginning when you're especially new to this is important because you want to see what does well. And that's how I'm going to end this is always seeing what has done well. What of your topics are doing well and why, what do people say to them? So really thinking about those things. So that's all we have today for our very first Art and Science of Marketing Communications with me, your host, Lauren Perna. Next week, I want you to tune in and learn about how to create standout content for your business, for your company, or to pass along the good information to people in your lives who have a business or a company or who run the marketing at your company. Hit me with any comments or questions in the comments section here. I am gonna run, but I will promise to look at your comments and questions when I get back. This has been wonderful. I'm so happy to be back here, and I will see you guys next week.